All right, guys. So in the last chapter, we spent a good amount of time on the loop layout and making sure that that is looking perfect for our classified website. Now, some of the things we're going to be covering now is a lot of heavy lifting as far as it comes to all the pages you'll see on the classified site. Now, in the previous example or chapter, we utilized a test page to look at what our loops look like. Now we already know what that's going to look like. So we'll delete that page and we're going to start with our landing page, and that's what we will be focusing on in this lesson. Now, in this chapter, we're going to be working with the archive pages. We're going to be working in the theme builder as well for building out the header and the footer for the site. And we're going to also be creating a single classified post. So there's a lot of template work that we'll be doing here, but build it once, and then it's going to be making your whole site look amazing. And throughout, of course, we'll be utilizing Divi machine modules to make sure that things look incredible. So without wasting too much time, let's get building on that landing page. So last time we hung out, we were working on this loop layout, as I had just mentioned, and that is looking awesome. So this is our test page. So what I'm just going to go ahead and do, I'm going to go to my dashboard really quick. And instead of deleting this one, maybe I'll just repurpose it. No, actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and delete it. So this is a page. I'm just going to go ahead and put that in the trash. And we will add a new landing page. And why are we doing this? Because this is what our landing page currently looks like. There's nothing relevant on there. We can't see recent classified posts or anything like that. We, of course, want to build out all of this gorgeousness. So let's add a page really quickly, and then we'll go ahead and start adding modules. And we'll start with the hero section. So we're going to start with this top part. We'll be adding a create new post button, but that'll just be taking the users to the backend, but we'll talk more about that as we go. So let's go ahead over here and we're going to tell it, well, we're going to build from scratch. Now, the first element we need to add here is going to be 2-column row. What I want to do before we get in too deep is I'm going to go ahead and save our page. So we're going to open up the settings for the page and we'll just call this landing page. There we go. We're not going to be adding any type of featured image or anything like that. That's just in there for this. Let me pull my face up a little bit. And we are just going to go ahead and publish this because I just want to assign this as our homepage before we get rolling, and I forget about it later in the course. So I'm going to go to my dashboard. We're just going to go to the settings. We're going to go to the reading settings. I'm going to go ahead and make this a static page. It's going to ask me which page, our landing page. So go ahead and save that up. And one more thing I want to take a look at here is the permalinks. We've got that already set as the post name. That is just basically pretty URLs. And that is exactly what we want there. So let's go back to our pages now. Let's go edit our, we want to edit with Divi. It will take us in there. And then we can go ahead and continue and start dissecting this page and build it out right here on our own listing site. Okay, so back here, I'm going to do this usually in 1 or 2 steps, probably 3 steps. We're first going to add all the contents, all the modules we need. Then we'll go ahead and style everything up so it looks perfect. And then we will go ahead and make sure that it's responsive. Now, you might have wondered why we didn't go ahead and make the loop layout responsive. Well, it's already in that phone shape for the loop layout. And what will happen on a mobile device, there are settings, and we'll look at those as we go through now, that will make sure that they wrap on different devices. So you can have 2 columns on mobile, you get 1 column on mobile, depends on what you want. So we're going to look at that also. Now, the first module we're adding here is going to be just a normal text module. And we are going to want to add a header here. So we're going to put, we don't need to put a h1 tag. We can just tell it, hey, this is going to be a h1. And then we're just going to call this, let's go with Divi machine classifieds. That's nice and easy. Now we can see that our text already goes into the orange because we set all this up when we started building our site out. But we're going to want to do 2 things here. I want this classifieds to wrap, so I can just go ahead and hit Shift and Enter, and that'll move it to the next line. But now if I want to do something a little bit more advanced, I want to give this that nice blue color that we're using. I would just go to the text, and this is going to reveal the code view. And I will just add a span tag around it, and that's quite easy. You're just going to type in span, and then you're going to give it style, because we're applying some CSS styles, equal And then we're going to say color, colon, and then we're going to put in our color code here, 334E6F. Oops, that did not type. 334E6F and a semicolon, and then we will close that parentheses and close that out. And you can see immediately that has taken shape exactly the way we want it to be. Let's just be a good little coder and put a closing span tag in there. So that's looking good so far. Now, next up, we're going to need another text module that will house this dummy text, the lorem ipsum. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. You can copy this from the demo site that would be linked all over the place. But you can alternatively also, let me open up a new tab here, go to this website called loremipsum.io, and you can just generate as much lorem ipsum text as you need, depending on where it's going, how you're putting it in. But we're going to keep it nice and easy. So let's add another text module. And like I said, we're going to get to the styling part a little bit later. So I'm just pasting that in there so that it is where it's supposed to be. Next up, we have a button tag, or not a button tag, but a button module we need to put in. So let's come back here and type in button. There we go. And then we'll just type in create new classified. I might switch things up a little bit compared to how we've been doing things on this side. That's okay. If you do things a little bit differently, that's fine. Again, the parts where you're going to want to pay the most attention is going to be when we're working with the Divi machine modules, because all this stuff can really just be what you want it to be. All right. So let's come back here. Now you can add a link for your button, of course. Now, the easy way to find a link for you to create a new button, if you don't have Divi form builder, just come up here to link. You can right click this under new, copy, link address, and then you just dump it right in there. And then what this will do is when you click it, it'll take you to the back end of the site if the user's logged in, to allow them to create a new classifieds post. So that's pretty easy. So we've got the button in. Now, next up, let's take a look, need to put this image in here. Now, if you don't have any images ready or anything in mind that you think you're going to want to use, I like to utilize Unsplash or Pexels or something like that. And then you can go ahead and type in pretty much anything you'd like to. I typed in garage sale and I came up with this guy kind of looking at stuff that seems to be at a garage sale, seems appropriate for a classifieds listing site. But again, you can use any images you want. This I'm just using for convenience. So don't hate me if it doesn't make entirely sense. So I'm going to go ahead and add this in. I'm going to type in image, and this can just be a normal Divi image module. So we'll just click on the image. And now I've already uploaded my image here. And of course, you might have to go through the upload process, but that's super simple. Now, alt text is always a good idea. So I'll just say Euro image. That sounds pretty good to me. And then I'll just go ahead and copy and paste that in the other spots. There we go. And I need to move my face again, upload the image, and there we go. So now we've got that in there. We can start working with the other elements, but we've got all the content on the page now. But obviously, it does points better than this. I'm going to move that over there, but it doesn't look as good as this one. So let's get into the styling now of all these different elements. All right, so first things first, we'll work with our section here, and we need to go ahead and add this beautiful pattern and just do a little bit of spacing so that the content has a bit of breathing room, that it's nicely centered vertically within our column. And then it also looks like we're going to be moving this text over here a little bit to the left, just so that, we've got a little bit of room and it's not as, what's the word I'm looking for, symmetrical with the other side. Let's get going. We're going to come in here. We're going to go to the background. We're not going to put a background color, but one of the new Divi features, of course, is the background masks. So I'll click on that one and then click Add Mask. Now, there are a bunch of different options. First thing, we're going to make it orange, and that is definitely not the color we're going to go for. But if we kind of look at these different options here, again, my head's in the way. I'm going to move myself this way for now. We see that we've got that pattern that we used, but it's inverted. So we'll just click that. And as easily as that, we've got the start and the makings of this pattern right there. And don't worry about that it doesn't look exactly the same right now. As we start working with this, it's going to look quite a bit different. Maybe what I want to do is also just kind of work with the aspect ratio. Seems okay. And then we will just leave it as is for now. So that's good. And now I mentioned some spacing. Let's go to design. We're going to go to the spacing tab, of course. And then what we are going to want to do is we're going to put about 120 pixels of padding top and bottom. And I know that looks ridiculous right now, but we're going to take care of this image in a minute. And we'll also add some left padding here, and that's just going to be 100 pixels. So it moves this entire section up a little bit. It makes the image overlap with that mask. And that's really all we're going to do on the section. Now, we talked about the image. I think the image is the tallest thing in this section. So for the euro section, and we are going to go ahead and control the size of that a little bit. So let's go into the module settings here. And then we're going to want to go to the design tab and the alignment. So we're going to center it in the column. But of course, because the image is so large right now, it takes up the whole column. So we're going to go to sizing. And now we need to find a good size, so a maximum width for this. So let's start with 75%. And we can see immediately that that is actually quite close to what we're going to want it to be when we look over here. I'm actually pretty happy with that. It's close enough, and I think it's striking enough that it does the job. What we also want to do, we're definitely going to be working with some border here. We're going to want to unlink the border because that's how we're going to get this curved shape that we have here. So top left and bottom right curves, and I don't know, maybe that is about, let's try 50 pixels. That's not enough. Let's double that to 100. There we go. I think that's a bit closer. So let's just put it over here as well. And there we go. That looks pretty good to me. And then the last thing that we need to tackle here is that this is going to have, this box shadow going on over here. So let's go ahead and add that box shadow for it. So if I'm coming down here, let's go to box shadow. I'm going to use the second option, and you can see the shadow popped in. And what I like about this, it kind of lifts that image off the page a bit. So let's just modify some settings here. You can control the horizontal position because we want it to go out a little bit more. And I am going to be quite aggressive with this because we want to get this effect that it's just floating there, almost like it's just sitting. So 80 by 80. And then, of course, the other way that we control this is by adding the blur strength to get these hard lines out, because now it looks like it's super high. So let's increase the blur strength here and kind of get to a point where we're pretty happy with it. Get it nice and soft. So that's 80. I still want it a little bit softer, so let's get it up to 120. And there you go. Now it's very subtle, but subtlety is good when it comes to this type of stuff. You don't want to overdo effects like this because otherwise it's distracting to the user. Perfect. Coming from the guy that's not a designer, right? But I think that is a valuable lesson that I've only learned the hard way. So there we have it. Now for desktop side, I think that is looking good. Don't worry about the responsiveness just yet. We're going to get to that in a little bit. Let's start by tackling this header now and open up the settings for that. So with that open, we're going to go to the design tab as promised, pull this back over to this side. And because we put this as a H1 tag, we'll go to the heading settings. Our default font is already set. We just want to make it a little bit bolder. I don't know, maybe even a little bit more than that. And we're certainly going to be increasing the size to, let's try out 80, see what happens. That's pretty good. I'm not too mad at that. What do you guys think? Maybe 75. Maybe that's a little aggressive. Okay, 75. 75 is where we'll settle. Okay, that's looking good to me. Now, remember, we are going to want to offset this a little bit just to create a little bit of space between the image, but also just kind of throw that design a little bit off center. So if you have OCD, leave it symmetrical. It's all good. This is your journey. You build it the way you want it. So how do we control that? Well, of course, with the spacing options we have here, and all we need to do is put a little bit of left margin, and we just put negative margin, and there you see that kind of pulls back a little bit. And I think what we'll do here is maybe going to be a little different than this. I am going to pull this back also, but not as much as we pull this back. So we've got kind of a nice little indent thing going on, and then we can see what works best with the button also. That's really it. That is going to be our page title. Now let's get to the text down here, and we won't be changing the text. So let's just go to the design tab and hit that text button. We want this to be a little bit lighter on the page. So let's go with the light option. I think that looks pretty decent. And maybe we'll just bump up the text size a bit because that's not extremely legible, is it? I am digging on that. Yeah, we can maybe make the text a little bit lighter if you felt like it. That's definitely way too light. Let's just go back and keep it at the default. That's going to be our blue color. That's good enough for me. And now that I look at it, I'm not digging on the color. Let's just make it the charcoal color instead. I think that's going to look a bit better. So the only other thing I'm going to want to do here is just modify the spacing again. Now, I think I used 100 before. So right now we'll just go minus 80 and see what that does. No, I think we want to decrease that a little bit. 70. Let's go 60. Yeah, 60 is good. I like that. That works for me. So we've got that going. So we can go ahead and save this module and we will move on to the button. On the button, we're going to do a couple things. Nothing too crazy. We've got our link in there. We can just go to design. A button alignment will be left. Now you can put it in the middle. You can put it on the right if you so choose. I think the left alignment looks good. And we're going to just kind of work with the button here because we know that this hover style is not exactly what we want. So let's just go and enable the custom button styles. I'm not too angry at that font size. I know that we kind of built it out with a smaller font size there, but you want people to kind of see the text and get in there. Let's keep that. Maybe what we'll do is just make sure, of course, that when we are hovering that button, that the border radius does not change. So of course you go to the hover settings and you go to hover. And you just put in that 50 pixels that we want. And then you can see, okay, great, that's working fine. We are not using any icons on this. So let's make sure that we disable all the icons as well, since we have that indication of the color changing. I want to work on the padding a bit though, too. So if I come up here, spacing. So let's add a bit of top padding. I'm going to do 15 pixels, maybe, top and bottom. And yeah, I think that's a done deal, right? We just need to control where that button is. So let's start off with the 50 pixels. Oh, that's the wrong spot. Left margin 50. That's going to bump it up to just a little bit less than that text is for the content. Let's do 60. That puts it in line. And just for giggles, let's put it at negative 80 and then go negative 100. Oops. Now that makes it in line with that. And I think that's what I'm going to go with for this layout. Again, not a designer here. I am just trying to show you guys different ways to manipulate these things on the page. And anyway, so that's going to be it. We've got our hero section ready. So now we're going to move on to, we need to build out this latest classifieds section. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Right, so continuing on, it is clear we are going to need a section for our latest classifieds, right? So we're adding that in. This is certainly only single column sections. We'll do one row with single column, then we'll do another row for this carousel we've got here. So let's go in, and you know the drill. First things first, we're going to put in the content. So I'm going to put in a text module. And this time, we're going to go ahead and just say latest classifieds. Maybe I don't need to uppercase that, right? No, that doesn't make sense. So latest classifieds. But again, your world, you can do it however you choose. Cool. We're going to make sure that this entire thing is a H2 because you don't want more than one H1 on your page, of course. And I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And then we'll just add another text module here. And by the way, when you see that it gets a little hard to add something in or these buttons are overlapping, this is something Divi sometimes does. Way around that is, of course, just to go ahead and enable the layer view. You can come in here, you can see your row, see your column in your row. You can see that there's a text model. You can also just click plus here and then type in text and bam, your text will pop right in there. Now we're going to be using that lorem ipsum text that we've used in the past here. So I'm just going to actually come up here, copy that and dump it right in there. And that was easy to do. So let's keep it rolling. Okay, so we've got this text in here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and add in. It's not the post slider. It's actually the post carousel, I believe. So we'll just come back down here. And then we have all of our different options here for post content, post carousel. So we'll add that in. And what I like about the post carousel is that you have a lot of options that you can change. Of course, you want to go ahead and select our classifieds post. And it tells you, oh, wait a minute, you got to add a loop. And of course, we are going to be utilizing that loop we built earlier, the classifieds loop. So you just select that one. And there you can see that it gets pulled in. Now, this is not fully Visual Builder compatible yet, but it will be in the future. But you can see that it kind of get the idea of what we're doing. Coming down to loop options, we're not going to be doing anything yet in the general section. But as far as sorting goes, of course, you're going to want the date and you're going to want it to be descending because it's going to take your latest post and then it's going to go to the one before that one and the one before that one and the one before that one. And that's how we get to control that. In the extra settings, or I should say extra options, we're going to tell it, all right, well, we want equal height cards. That's a good idea because maybe you've got some posts with taller images or shorter images or something like that that's going to affect the height of the actual post. So we are definitely going to want that. And then we're going to align the last module at the bottom. What that's going to do is drop the submit button to the bottom so that they're all lined in one straight line. And that's going to look much better and be more aesthetically pleasing. And then here comes a lot of options that we need to quickly discuss and think about. On desktop, we're going to say we want to see 3 posts at a time. And then we need to think about, okay, well, what do we want it to do when we're on the slide? So how many posts, when you click the button, does it go over? It's going to also give you the option, of course, on tablet, how many posts do you want? How many do you want to slide? And so forth. So you can go through this all day long. It does have a lot of options on there. It also gives you the ability to change the icon that we're using. But when we look here, we're just using that standard one that we are already using. And I think that is fine. But if you wanted to get creative and use something else, it's as simple as just clicking, let's see, this one, and it'll not update to the right one, but that's part of the Visual Builder compatibility that we're working on and fixing. So continuing on, we can change the arrow color, and we're going to want it that nice orange color that we've got going on. I think that's fine. I don't think we need the dot navigation, but when you do, you know how you get those little dots that go in underneath here. Maybe it's better to look here where we actually have some posts. So those dots that you can click that would change the navigation, that's of course what that is, but we're not going to deal with that. You can also tell it, well, hey, do you want to autoplay it? Do you want there to be a delay? Do you want slide speed? Do you want infinite scrolling? We're not going to be messing with any of that stuff. That is basically it for the slider and the content. And then now that we've got all the content on the page, I think maybe it's a good time to just quickly save it. And then why don't we just take a look at what the homepage looks like right now? Okay, so here we are on the homepage and we're coming down here and we can see that things are still a bit funky here that we need to address, but we will deal with that in a moment because there are text options and stuff that we have not set yet. So, but you can see that the basic functionality is here. It's pulling in all the different latest posts up until the very end. We've got our categories and we're going to get styling with this in a minute here. And everything is starting to look really good. So you should be proud of yourself for what you've done so far. So let's get to styling this and making it look fantastic right now by enabling the Visual Builder once again. All right, so just a quick note before I continue, because I actually figured out what the deal was with this bottom section not showing up. When I come back here, if you do have issues like I am, and I think it's related to me being on my local machine, is you go into the carousel settings and you know these the options that we set here for equal height cards, align last module to the bottom, you're going to need to disable that, unfortunately, and it will probably work on a production site or on a web host. But for some reason, it does not play well on a local machine. So keep that in mind, kids. I have disabled mine, so it's going to not look exactly how I want it to, but close enough, and I'm going to run with it. It's only one slider. Most of my images are, however, the same size, so you'll almost never notice it, but that's, again, also probably a good moment to talk about it being important to make sure that you're using the right sizes for your images. So anyway, let us not digress and continue on with our journey here. And let's go style this text up here. So we're going to open up this first heading module. So we're going to go to the heading text. We're going to go to H2. Since it's H2, we'll center that text off the bat. We are going to use the bold color for it, or that, not color, the bold weight. And then let's go with 58 pixels here. And I think that's pretty good. We don't want it to be much, as large as the header text there. And of course, we want this to be our nice blue color. And I think that is all we need to do with that one. Now, if you want, we can add a little bit of spacing, but I'm not going to do that right now. One thing I do notice that we still need to do is just come in here on the section. And we're just going to give it this off-white background. so that it kind of differentiates itself from the top section here. And then, of course, again, from the bottom one that's going to be coming up. Okay, so we've got that in there. We'll continue on. Now, we're all smart Divi users here. So what I want to do here, to simplify my life, I want the text to be the same as this one. So you can right-click it. You can go ahead and say, copy module styles. And I'll come down here and I'll paste module styles, and bam, that immediately gets pasted in there. And that is the smart way to do things. Now, we do need to change a couple things here. We'll go to the design tab. And of course, we want this text to be center aligned. Not the shadow, center align the text. And then if you recall, we did add some spacing on there. So we'll just go ahead and delete that out. And now your text should be perfect right in there. And I think that looks good. Now we're going to create a little room for this carousel. We're going to go into the row settings and we'll go to design. And for spacing, I think I'll put 50 pixels at the top, 50 at the bottom. Now I think 75 is going to be a little bit more appropriate. There we go. Now this has a little bit more breathing room out here. So when I save this now, I'll hop back on the front end and let's refresh to see what we've done. Bam. Okay. Making progress here, guys. This is looking pretty good. I can see here that we've got a little thing with the shadow on the bottom. Now that I think about it, it's definitely a margin issue that we're experiencing with this hovering, but I don't think it's on the page. I think it's on the loop. Let me hop back here on the loop for our classifieds. And on this section, I'm going to go to the design tab and I'm going to go to spacing. Now we've got 0 pixels here. Let's make that 30 instead. And what this will do is on the outside of that loop item, it'll create a little bit of room at the top and the bottom, and that should solve the issue that we're seeing. So let's save that and we'll go back and refresh. Let's do that. And yeah, voila. It is all good now. Now we don't see it getting cut off at the top or at the bottom, and I am happy. Cool, let's continue. So next up, we are adding this lost and found section right here, and now things are gonna get a little bit easier. We're gonna be using the archive loop module, but this part up here, I can just copy that. So let's get back in here. We're gonna add a new section, regular and single column row. Now, instead of adding a bunch of extra things, we just need to add one thing because we're going to copy that title. So we're going to go and look for the archive loop module. Now, again, if you guys recall from earlier, we're going to take that layout that we created and we're going to loop it with the archive loop module. So add that in there. We're going to tell it we're using the classifieds post type, and we will be using our classifieds loop. There we go. And that is also already working quite well, but we do need to still make some small changes here, but there won't be anything too crazy. We are going to adjust the familiar, should be familiar now, layout here on the grid options. Now we're going to be utilizing the grid layout, so that's great. And we're going to ask it to do equal height cards and then align the last module at the bottom. Let's see if it works better here. And for the, not the element options, but for the grid options, we don't want 4 columns, we only want 3. I'll think about it for a second, and there we go. Now we're getting much closer to the layout that we've got going on. Oh, not this one over here. See, that's how close they are. They almost look the same to me at this point. So we also want to make sure that we're sorting it by the lost and found type, right? It doesn't help if we've got a bunch of other items in here. So that comes in here with the loop options. We're going to say that we only want to include certain terms. We're going to want to be selecting the taxonomy because we want all the lost and found pets to be listed here. So we go down and we go to the classifieds category. Now, if you guys remember from when we set all of this stuff up, we created the category called lost in the wrong spot there. That's my bad. In the page settings, let me just come back in here, go back down to the loop options, include terms, classifieds category, lost dash found. Now, if you forgot where this lives, is if we come back here and I go to classifieds and I click on my categories, right here next to lost and found, you can see lost dash found, and that's why I've entered that in here. Let's save this really quick and see what happens. Come back to the front end and refresh, and here we go. Now we've got a bunch of lost and found items, but as you see, We don't have any houses that are for sale or anything that's for free. So that was a great success with that one. Now, we also don't want to show a ton of stuff here. It might be a little bit overwhelming. So maybe what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and put 3. I know we've got 6 here, but we're going to do 3 for posterity and speed. So let's come back here. We'll click on this guy. And then maybe what we can do is we can add a load more button because that would be interesting to see how to do. So that is going to be back at the element options, no, loop options, and we're just going to tell it post count is going to be 3. So we'll have 3 of these here. And I think that's a good setup to start with. And then at the top in the main options, you can control how to load more posts. It's actually going to be down here under the element options. And then how do we load more posts? Well, let's just add a load more button. And there you can see a load more button, but we do need to give it a little bit of love there. So we'll address that in the design portion. Well, we're not going to really be dealing with design as we're just going to be copying this text up there. So let's just go with it now. We go to design, button load more, add custom styles. And by now, I think you guys are going to know what we're doing. We're just going to change that load more button radius for the hover and make sure it's got those 50 pixels in there. And then that way, that looks fine. And then we'll just remove the icon again. And there we go. That's perfect. So as I promised, we're going to be copying this whole row. So copy row. We'll come down here and paste it. And then we just need to drag it up over here. There we go. And instead of latest classifieds, of course, we're just going to say lost and found. And there we go. Lost and found section in the bag. Cool. So next up, we are going to have this little counter thing over here. This is just going to be the normal counter that's super easy to do. So let's fly through that really quick before we get to the rest of this. And now it's going to go even faster because we'll be copying, pasting the whole section and just dropping it in there. So that's going to make life a lot easier. So we're almost done here. Okay, so back at the top, let's come down here. And then let's go and edit our page. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and add a new section. And we're going to make a regular one. Now, we're going to create a column for each of these counters to keep things nice and simple. So those were 4 counters, so 4 columns, right? Add a new one in, count, and then we've got the number counter. Awesome. So for the first one, we are just going to put found the electronics. And these things are absolutely arbitrary. You can put anything that you want in there. This is not anything fancy. We're just going to go ahead with the basic settings and just you can fudge some numbers in there. We're not going to have a % sign. And that is almost all that we're going to do here. Since this is kind of a small section, we'll go through the design of this right now. And what we're going to do is affect the title text. And we're going to want to give it that blue color that we have. And I'm going to stay with this light. No, actually, no, that is way too light. I think this works a bit better, but we're going to use our gray color on that. That's looking good to me. So now it gets easy again. We're just going to make 3 copies of this guy. And we'll drag one into each of the columns. Save us time and effort. They say work smarter, not harder, right? So we are going to go and add in our found dogs in here. And we'll just add another number, 85, whatever. And then, I don't know, item sold. Why not? That I just hit in there. And then lastly, visitor satisfaction. And then we'll put 100 here. And then for this one, we'll turn the % on. And there we go. That's looking good. And then all we need to do now is for this background here, because we want to create this break up every now and again to give the user just a break from all the stuff that they're taking in. We will go to background and we'll just give it that gray color. And I think we are good to go. Awesome. So that's another one down. So let's see what's next. So next up, we're going to put the for sale in, and this is going to be easy as pie because all we got to do is come to our page right over here, and we're going to copy this entire section. So I'm going to copy section. I'm going to do it right here. Paste section. There we go. Let's go in and just make the text for sale. That's good. And now, of course, we need to modify this archive loop. So we're going to come in. We're still dealing with classifieds. We're going to use the same loop, all that fun stuff. But when it comes to the loop options, we're going to tell it to use different terms. And here we've got lost and found. Now remember, our for sale is for-sale for that slug. And that's what we're going to use right here. So if I change this to for-sale and click out of it, and let's save this. And I want to show you on the front end what's happening. Cool. Let's refresh. There we go. This button needs a bit of padding there, I see, because this is overlapping and we can easily do that. Well, it's going to need margin. And here we go. Here are items that are for sale. So that was super simple. It took us just a few seconds to get that on there. Let's go fix this button really quickly by hopping back here. It's odd because it looks like it's there, but it's not there. So we'll just come up here. We'll go to design, and by the button, let's see if we can find the margin. There we go. Top margin. Let's put 50 pixels and see if that is enough. Button level padding. Yeah, let's see. We might have to adjust that a little bit more. There we go. Let's refresh. Okay, that was not enough. So it's clearly going to need a little bit more. So let's do that. Yeah, okay, so getting in here, let's go take a look. Design, button load more. And okay, I did not put it in the right spot. I bet you anything, I went ahead and put it on this one over here and thought I did it up there. So let's take a look. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so we can fix that really easily. So we're going to save that and then refresh the page and see what happens. So let's refresh. Okay, coming down. All right, so now we've got the right amount of space. 50 seems to be a good number. I will stick with that. Cool, so now we can move on. So looking here at our completed site, we got to do this whole why list me. And what I've got is another header, of course, and then some blurbs over there. And guess what? We're going to be copying that header to recreate this effect and just make some minor changes to it. So let's do that. So here we are on our layout. We're going to come up here. We're going to copy our euro section. We're going to scroll down. And then again, over that blue plus, we're going to right click and hit paste. Now let's move in from one side. I'm going to go into the section, background. I'm going to use all of gray because again, we're breaking things up a bit. And we will delete the pattern here. So who knew you were going to get a course on building these things super efficiently? So here we go. So that's our section pretty much ready. We can delete this text and we can delete that button. And looks like we'll just say, why list me? And then some other title that you would like. And then just a few blurbs in there. So we'll come back over here. We'll select our text. Why list me? Question mark. And we are going to want to make this H2. And let's just go to the text here. Okay. That H2 took a very small size here, but maybe it looks different on the front end. We'll trust it for now, but not for too long. Let's save it and just take a look really quickly. Let's go down, down, down. Okay, so that text is not what we want it to be. Oh, that's of course also because we did change the size of that title text. So what we're going to want is probably a text that's about this size. And if I remember, it was 58. Not H1, it's an H2. Yeah, 58. So there you go. Let's go put that in. Design, heading text, H2, 58. There we go. And we're going to make it a little bolder. That's good. I like that. And then we're going to make the color our blue color. Okay. So let's go ahead and add in a blurb module. Blurb. You just type that on in. And we're going to need to change up some things, of course. First, we're going to say, by adding the content search, whoopsie, search for anything. I mean, this is all going to be silly text. So I wouldn't worry too much about what I am putting in here, but you might need to because you might be building a production site. So whatever text you want in here, I'm just, again, placing some lorem ipsum text in there. I am going to go to the image and icon, and yes, we will be using an icon. Now, of course, you are all Divi veterans. I'm just going to type in search and find an icon I think looks appropriate. That's working pretty good for me. And we don't need to add anything else there, but we do need to do some stuff on the design side. For the image and icon, the icon color, we'll keep that color. And I think the background color, all that stuff looks fine. But the icon we'll put on the left-hand side, and the icon size can probably get a bit of a boost here. Well, actually didn't need a boost. It just needed to use the icon sizes. So I think 72 is a happy place for me with this one. Maybe even less. Let's go with 62. Yeah, 62 is fine. We're going to want to change the alignment. Now, I do like that it's indented a bit, but we'll indent it a little bit more. Let's just quickly work on the text that we've got going on. So let's close this. We'll go to the title text. And for the title text, we are going to be using our blue color. And we shall go ahead and make this just ever so slightly bold and make that 16. That's actually not that great. Let's keep it at the 18 that it is. That's fine. And then maybe for the body text, we can start playing around. We're going to make it our light font, similar to the one that we're using over there. And then we'll probably boost that up to a size 16. That looks fine to me. And we will make it our gray color. That is good. Now, the last thing left to do is just work with the spacing. Now, on the left-hand side, we're going to use that negative margin. Let's go negative 50. And I think negative 50 is the happy place for me here. Now, as you guessed it, we'll save that. And then we'll just add a few of these on the page so that we can save some time by building this efficiently. So we're going to say, use your exact location. Maybe some people won't like that, especially today, but that's what we're rolling with. And for the icon, we will maybe say map. That is pretty decent. And then this icon looks good to me. Great. Moving on to the next one, see how fast we get to move now. And then we go explore local deals or something like that, or to that effect. Yeah, so maybe local would bring up a result that we like. We see our maps coming up here again, but instead this time I'm going to use this funky globe type thing. Cool. And that is our why list me section. So maybe I want to put a space in there. That looks kind of weird, doesn't it? There we go. Awesome. So last but not least, we have the free stuff section. Oh, second to last but not least, the free stuff section. So let's hop in here. And we are going to go ahead and copy our for sale section. So copy that. Come down here. You know the drill by now. Paste that in there. And now we're just going to go ahead and type in free stuff. And of course, again, you'll be replacing all of this stuff with your own content. But the most important part here is learning how to use Divi Machine and how to do it with Divi Machine. So we are going to go and make sure that all these things are still selected. We've got the right loop in there, all that fun stuff. But the loop options, again, we need to make sure that we've got the right terms in here. And there we go. So for free stuff, we can come back here, but I remember this one. It's free-stuff. So we will just go ahead and type that free-stuff. And we are all set with this one. We're all done with this. How quick was that? That was my favorite one, probably. Nice and quickly, no problems. So let's save that. And just again, take a quick peek on the front end to see what we're doing. Now, you would, of course, swap this image out for something that you find appropriate. Again, Unsplash is really good for that, or Pexels. It just makes life a lot easier, and those images you can use royalty-free. So that is what we love. Let's go ahead and make a new section here. We're going to add a single column row, and then we will put the opt-in module on there, and we are almost good to go now. And now before I start styling this, let's just quickly do what I think you can guess we're going to do. We're going to put the background to that off-white color. And then we'll quickly style up the layout for this opt-in form. Now, of course, the opt-in module is utilized to sign people up for your newsletter. So normally you would need something like MailChimp or something connected to this so that it does work properly. So just keep that in mind as you get going with this stuff, okay? First, we're going to say, okay, well, this is our newsletter. You could say something witty like join our newsletter, whatever you want to. We'll change the button text to say subscribe now. This orange color is not doing it, but again, that comes from the accent. So, maybe I should have chosen the blue color instead of the accent. So just this will kind of illustrate to you where it gets used all over the place. Great. So for the background color, I just want to get this orange out of the way here. I'm just going to make it transparent. But now text disappears, but we'll fix that in a moment. Let's just come back to the text, and I'm just going to paste some lorem ipsum text in there again. And I think for the fields, we'll just use a single first name. Keep it nice and simple. We don't want to create too much friction for people signing up to this. We can go look at the spam protection. You can enable that CAPTCHA if you wanted to. You can use Google reCAPTCHA. There are a lot of different options. But of course, this is more focused on showing you how to utilize Divi Machine. But if you go to email account, you can see here that the MailChimp is in here and a lot of different email options. So whatever you guys use for your newsletter services, that's how you're going to go ahead and do it. We're going to need to style up some of this text though. We are going to want to go to the first thing here, which is going to be our title text. Oops, I clicked too quick. We're going to use our blue. And now that's kind of coming out quite nicely. We're going to want to give it a little bit of a bolder flair to it. And then, of course, we're going to want to tell it, well, that text size is a little off. Let's get it nice and big and bold. That looks great. Anything else that we want to change here? Maybe we just want to adjust the line height just a tad. Scooch up a little bit closer to each other. And I think that just looks better. And now we'll move on to the body text. So for the body text, we're going to go ahead and we're going to use our light font. We're going to make it our gray color. And yep, 16 pixels is what we'll be using for that. And this is almost starting to look like exactly what I wanted to. We just want to differentiate this button for the subscription from the other ones because these input fields here are square. So we want to make sure that it kind of keeps that uniformity throughout. So I am just going to go ahead here to the button settings. I'll add some custom styles. And now, for the first time, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to make sure that the border radius is 0. And now when you hover it, stays 0. And we want that arrow on this one just because it's a completely different action than what we're doing on some of the other elements on the site. So I'm going to go ahead and save that by clicking the button. And then I'll head to my front end and take a look and see what that did. And of course, now, this is one quote with Divi. If you don't have an email account hooked up, it doesn't show the newsletter section. So bear that in mind. You need your MailChimp connected to have it show. But as you can see here on the back end, this is what it will look like and how it will function on the front end if you have that in there fully functioning. So keep that in mind, guys. But everything else is looking exactly how we want it to. So we have done a great job. This was a very long lesson, so I appreciate you guys sticking with me. But our homepage is done. The rest of the stuff won't be as long, but it's going to be definitely heavy on the information and tools that you need to use Divi Machine to build a classified site just like this one. You're going to learn a lot, so I'm excited to take you guys through that. Now, next up, I'm going to be taking you guys through building the header and footer in the Divi theme builder. That should be a pretty quick one because we won't be doing any crazy stuff in there. We want to stay focused on all those Divi Machine things. So I'm going to catch you guys in the next lesson real soon.